Welcome to the Middle School Visual Arts PLC group. I'm Alicia Montgomery and I'm the moderator for this group. I'm so glad that you joined our community. It was created with you in mind. Our goal is to collaborate and support each other as we navigate the craziness of teaching middle school visual arts. Whether you are one of many or the only one in your system, we know that you're going to find some wonderful things here that will help you. In order to make this as beneficial as possible for everyone, be sure to set up your notifications and check back often to see posts, discussions, and support that will be showcased. And please engage in the discussions and offer up any support or questions that you may have. Also, share this platform with your friends and colleagues so that we can become a stronger, better community. So today's topics are post-production practices, our yearly reflection on kind of how the year went, what we need to do or change for next year, and our tips for planning for next year. So those are the kinds of things that I'm going to be talking about today. The first thing that I wanted to discuss with you today is post-production practices. So I want to talk a little bit about storage and how I store my materials and equipment at the end of the year. How do I reorganize my classroom? How do I do that? And how do I pack everything up for the summer so that it's easier and ready for me when we come back to school in the fall? So one of the things that I do with my students is we clean up first. I clean up before I do any inventory or planning for next year or anything like that. And there's one of me, but I have about 210 students the last week of school. So I usually enlist their help. And I actually do this at the end of every 9 weeks, not just at the end of the year. So one of the things that I do is I assign group chores. I have each group in every class do just a little small chore. It may take from 5 to 10 minutes, and I make it part of their work ethics grade. I do this because it holds them accountable so that they're doing their job and not running around horseplaying or slacking off. And this helps just kind of maintain organization in our classroom. I make them work in different sections of the room so they're not all on top of each other. And this makes it really quick. So something that would take me days to do, my students can do in just 5 or 10 minutes per class period. So some of the things that I have them do is we clean tables and counters. So I give them some spray and a cleaning rag and tell them if they find anything on their table they can't get off, I'll come around with a stronger spray. Or if there's like glue stuck to the table, I'll come around with a razor blade and scrape that off. And so I'll have one group, one class, each group will clean their table. And then another class I'll have clean one of the counters. They'll take everything off, clean the counter really good. The stuff that's staying, they put back. And the stuff that needs to be put away, they put it wherever it belongs. Another thing that we do is we clean out and organize the cabinets and the drawers. So I have lots of cabinets in my room, and you can see some of those back here behind me. I have the students take everything out, organize it, wipe down the shelves, and put everything back in. We do the same thing for any drawers that I may have that we use on a regular basis. I clean and organize my bookshelves. So I have a student take down all the books, wipe off the shelves, and you'll see some examples of those in just a minute, and put those back up. And then we cover those with either a bulletin board paper or an old sheet, and we kind of tape the edges at the end of the year so that way it doesn't get all dusty. So when I come back in the fall, I don't have to spend my time dusting and cleaning. I can just pull those off and they're ready to go. I have a student that cleans my whiteboard with special whiteboard cleaner. We clean the monitors on my desktop computers for my students. I have a special cleaner that we use to spray and wipe those down, so we do that. We dust. We dust the CPUs, we dust the monitors, we dust the keyboards. We wipe down window ledges, we wipe down the fronts of the cabinets and the doors. We clean paint palettes. We wash out ceramics materials. So in just a minute, I'm going to give you a little tour of what my classroom looks like today, which is a little bit crazy because it's close to the end of the year. We've got about a week and a half left of school, and so we're trying to start wrapping up projects and getting everything cleaned up and ready for the summer. So you'll see some of those things in just a minute. Right. I also do independent chores with my students. And so this year, my students have crayons and color pencils that are in a little kit that they use, as well as a sharpener. And so this year, well, in every year, what we'll do is at the end of the quarter or the end of the school year, we'll dump all our crayons out on the table, and then we'll take any crayons that are half a crayon size or bigger. We'll make sure there's one of each color and we put them back in the box. So we can kind of see how many sets we have. If it's less than half a crayon size, we have some little buckets that you saw in the video that we just drop those in. And then that way, as we run out during the year, we can pull some of those out if we need to. All right, the next thing is our technology. So how do I handle technology? With technology, I make sure that we clean everything really good. So like, for example, this is my Elmo. It has a nice little cute sleeve that goes over the top of it. So most of the time during the school year, it looks like the picture on the left. At the end of the year, I'll unplug it, I'll wipe it all off, I'll put the little cover on it, and then this is actually sitting on a little rolling cart. So I will put any other technology that needs to be locked up for the summer on this cart as well. I'll label the cords to where they plug in and the plug that goes with it. I just usually put a little sticker on it or a little colored zip tie so that I remember which hole it goes in. It makes it a whole lot easier to set it back up at the beginning of the next school year. And then I'll just roll the whole cart into my storage room where it gets locked up for the summer. Computers, we do the same thing, and you saw how I cover those in a previous little tour of my classroom. Other technologies like my webcam, any drawing tablets that I have, speakers, external hard drives, all of those things I try to keep together on this cart, so it's real easy to get it, put it up and get it back out at the end. So it is the end of the year and we have about 2 weeks of school left. This is what my storage room looks like today. I'm also the yearbook advisor, so we just finished passing out yearbooks on Friday. There's artwork that needs to be returned. There's stuff that's out of place. Some of it still looks pretty good. There's empty containers that we've been emptying out the last few days. All my resource books and file folders hanging out of the cabinet. So it looks a little crazy right now. So before I leave for the summer, I want to make sure that all of this is straightened back up nice and neat and orderly. And I'll do that before I start taking my inventory. So this is what my classroom is looking like right now as we're trying to finish out the year. We've got 2 projects that we're trying to finish up, one for 6th grade and one for 7th grade. And we are in the middle of milestones testing, so my tables are having to be cleared every day and put back out again. And so that's what you see over here on the counter and on the table. This big piles of stuff. And the Chromebook cart that we're using for testing, and the stuff on my whiteboard, people that need to finish their projects. So one of the things that we will do as we finish out the year is to take all of our crayons that aren't in the best of shape and put in these labeled baby food containers and coffee cups to make sure that they are all sorted by the appropriate color so that they'll be ready to sort out and use for next year. Another thing that I'll do is I'll take these jars that I poured glaze in throughout the year. I'll dump as much of the extra glaze as I can back in the main jug, and then we'll take all of these and we'll soak them in the sink, and then I'll let a kid that likes to help wash those out, and when we get done they'll be all nice and clear and clean like this one, ready to use again for next year. Another thing that I will do as we close out the year is all of my nice cabinets that have handles that open, I will have to take and zip tie them all closed like you see here, because we have a summer camp that uses my classroom during the summer, and unfortunately they don't always take the best care of materials and they use up some of my supply. So we put the zip ties on there to help reduce that problem. Another thing that I'll do is I'll go ahead and clean my computers really good. I'll clean the monitors. I'll dust out the fan in the CPU. I'll clean out my keyboard tray. turn it upside down, knock all the junk out of it, clean off my headphones really, really good, and then I will take and cover it with a sheet like this. So then when I come back next year, I don't have to spend a lot of time dusting again. I'll just pull those covers off, take them home, wash them, and my computers will be all set up and ready to go. I do the same thing with my cabinets. I usually have a couple of students go and take everything off the shelves, dust them really good, spray them down with some cleaner and wipe them, and then put everything back. And then I'll take some other sheets or bulletin board paper and cover those up. So they'll look something like this, and I'll tape the edges so that they are ready to go next year as soon as we get back as well. I can just pull that sheet off, and I don't have to waste time dusting the shelf. So before I talk to you about our supply inventory, I want to talk to you about a few other little things that we do. I make sure and give back all of our papers, all the student papers that I have left over that have been on display in the hallway or on our bulletin board. I make sure that we've gotten everything back from our Youth Art Month exhibits, which are sometimes in March and April, so that I can get those returned to students. I also go through all of my file papers and lessons and instructions, make sure they're all filed back in the filing cabinet where they need to go or put in the box to shred. And our school has where we can take our shredding boxes up to the office, and they have a big company that comes in with a big truck and shreds all of our stuff. I check all of my cabinet labels and replace any of those that need to be replaced, maybe that have fallen off or gotten lost, or maybe I need to move some things around because we found that didn't quite work as well as I thought it would there this year. Let's see. What else do we do? I reorganize any supplies that may need to be restocked or moved to a better location. I go ahead and restock things like my construction papers. I can kind of see what I've got when I start doing my inventory. And so those bins are covered and ready to go when we start back in the fall. That's another thing that I cover with paper or a piece of fabric at the end of the year. So that way it doesn't get all dusty and faded throughout the summer. I also zip tie those cabinets like you saw in the previous video. I pack up all of my items that are on my desk, like my stapler, pens, markers, tape dispensers, all of those things. I have a box that just says teacher desk, and I put all of those things in there, and I take it and put it in my storage room as well, so that way when I come back in the fall, it's real easy just to pull that out, and I know that all of that stuff goes right back on my desk. So that's one of the first things that I usually do when we come back. I also put my Georgia Standards of Excellence in that box and any beginning of the year lesson plan, so that way those things are ready when we get back as well. And then I take my shred box to the office. So that's the biggest things that I do before I start doing my supply inventory. So the next thing that I do is to inventory all of my supplies. So I go through, after we've gotten everything put away and everything in its place, then I will go through and I have a list of all of the items that are consumables that we use every year. And I also have a list on my door of things that are not consumables that may need to be replaced, like we lost an X-Acto knife, or one got broken, or we're missing some pen tools for working with ceramics because the tips got bent or whatever it was. I have a list of just those things that I add to this as well. And so I list the items in the first column. In the second column, I put how much I have left. So for like glaze, I have half a bottle, or construction paper, I have 1 pack, or crayons, I have 10 sets. Whatever it is, I go ahead and list that in the quantity remaining. And then I look back at my supply order from the beginning of the year and how many things that I had to start with. And then I subtract that from the quantity we have remaining, and I put that in my order quantity. So however many I need to order for this coming up school year. So the next thing that we want to look at is our yearly reflection practices. What was successful or not successful? Was the instruction successful for all of my students? And then the last thing is, did I meet my personal and professional goals for this year? So the first thing is, what went well and what didn't? what are things that I could have done to be a better teacher, or what are things that I feel like could have been done better? What are things that I just need to throw out and let's not do this project again? The students either hated it or it just didn't go well. And one example of that is a ceramics project that I did. I had this grand idea that we would make these ceramic bases, just like with a little pinch pot or coil base, and then we would punch holes in the side and put reeds and use those as our warp threads or warp pieces, and then we were going to weave around the tops of those. Well, we got the bases made, we got those glazed, that went well. We had a few little holes we had to drill out, but then we started putting on our reeds and trying to weave. It was a little too much for my sixth graders. So we ended up having to back up, and then we ended up just kind of putting ribbon through the holes and making a cute little pinch pot with a little detail at the top. So I know that I've either got to find a better way to teach that or not do that particular project anymore. Another thing that I want to make sure that I'm looking at is go back and look through my lesson plans. And I usually make notes on my lesson plans as we're doing them about things that went well, things that I need to change, or hey, I need to do this differently, or this took 2 days instead of just one. And so that way I can go back and adjust those lessons based on those notes that I left myself. So I'll be ready for that when I teach it again the next year. What are some things that students struggled with? I usually try to make those notes at the bottom, or things that I did that worked well for my artistically gifted students or my special needs students, or hey, maybe I need to find a better way to handle this with my special needs or my gifted students. And one of the things that I learned this year is we do this 1-point linear perspective project. And most of my students have never done this before, so we go through it step by step. For some of my students, especially those that are artistically gifted, they can fly through this a lot faster and then put a lot more effort into the details and the creativity than if I make them go step by step. So I have video and print instructions that those students can use so that they can go ahead and go ahead with their project instead of waiting on us to do the baby step part. And then they can move on to another project if they finish before we do. So that's one of the things that I learned this year that works really well for my artistically gifted students. Another thing that I found that I need to work on or organize a little better is how I have my sixth grade materials and my seventh grade materials organized. So next year, I think I'm going to get a bin that has all of my sixth grade materials in it for that group. And then I'll have a separate bin that has all of my seventh grade materials, because that'll save us a lot of putting up and getting out, because I have those classes back to back. So what kind of professional learning did I do this year? Or do I normally do? I usually go to a Georgia Art Education conference that's put on by the Georgia Art Education Association each year. They have a big fall conference, usually where teachers can go and you go to hands-on workshops. They have a lot of workshops about Georgia standards, and different museums come, and there's lots of vendors there that have new products and test samples that you can get and try. And I love to do that so I can try those with my students. I love the interaction with other teachers. I am the only middle school teacher in our county, so I love to be able to get together with other middle school teachers and share experiences. And hey, I've having some trouble with this. What are you doing? What are you doing that's new and different that is really engaging for the students? There's also a lot of online virtual professional learning, kind of like this one. There's blogs out there. There's lots of different ideas of things that you can do or that you can learn, that you can try with your students. I think you should always be looking for new things to help keep their interest. Now, there are some projects that if I decide not to do them that year, the students fuss because it's one of the favorite projects that they look forward to doing. So we try to work through those things, and I try to incorporate some new things that they're interested in at that time, or as a sixth or seventh grader, kind of what's the buzz right then that they are interested in. I also like to look at the things that are on the Department of Education website, the resources that they have there, and some of them I use, some of them I modify to fit me and my students best. So I love to kind of look at those and go through those as well. Okay, so our next topic is planning for next year. What do I do? So the first thing that I do is I look at lessons that I taught this year, decide what I want to keep and what I want to swap out. Right? Where can I add a new project if there's something I found throughout the year through conferences that I really find interesting? I want to make sure that those meet my Georgia Standards of Excellence. I have to think about the supplies that I will need. Are they supplies that are going to fit in my budget? If not, do I need to fundraise to be able to get those? Am I going to be able to fundraise enough at the beginning of the year to have them for the last half of the year? Or is that a plan that I need to make for the following year? I need to think about what kind of community and school service projects that we can do or that we want to do. I always try to make sure that those tie in with our Georgia Standards of Excellence as well. Um, Things like Relay for Life or Empty Bowls or school murals or school beautification projects. Right? Sometimes I talk with the ag teachers and see kind of if they're working on something like an outdoor garden or things like that we can kind of piggyback off of and help them with those things. I also think about what contest opportunities we have and what exhibit opportunities are going to be available for the year. Are there things that we participated in this year that we want to continue to do? Or are there exhibits that, hey, that didn't go so well, or maybe this contest wasn't real good? We don't want to do that again next year, or think about some different ways to do those. What are the due dates approximately? How are we going to be able to get those things done within a 9 weeks, as well as sticking with our standards and our projects that we need to do to make sure we're covering everything we need to?